which, as you know, is all about the restructuring of the Rhodes University Pension Fund. The town hall is, of course, only one of the means through which information is made available to members and through which dialogue is available to members as well, between ourselves and you, of course. We also have the website. There are newsletters and, of course, other webinars and also one-on-one discussions, which you are most welcome to. Now, of course, the objective today is to make as much as possible information about the restructuring available to you, and of course, give you the opportunity to interact with the team through questions and discussion. Before we get going, just a few guidelines, some housekeeping for the event. First of all, your cameras and microphones have been disabled for the webinar. Secondly, please, could you send your questions via the question and answer button on the toolbar, and these will be addressed at the end of our presentations. Also, just to note that a recording of the webinar will be made available post the event. Now, we would like just to share the agenda proceedings for this afternoon. Well, first of all, just to say welcome again, and we're going to introduce the facilitators and the speakers in a minute. We do hope that the session is going to provide you with the information that you need. The second point is going to cover the background to the restructuring and the changes themselves. We're going to get to that in a minute. Thirdly, would be your options as a pensioner of the fund, obviously on the way forward. Then we're also going to look at resources available to you to help you make your decision. And we're going to cover some important frequently asked questions. These are really the things that people would like to know. And we're going to end it off with the summary and the questions. Now, without further ado, we're now just going to have a look at our presentation, who will be taking part, and I would like to introduce them to you. Top left, Professor Sizwe Mabizela. I think you all know Professor Mabizela, of course, the Rhodes University Vice Chancellor, and he's going to be our first speaker. Then Professor Gavin Keaton and myself are both from the Economics Department at Rhodes. We are both trustees of the fund, and we also serve on the Pension Restructuring Committee. And then, of course, bottom right, Mr. Derek Munton, who is the regional head and principal consultant of Alexander Forbes, Port Elizabeth, Eastern Cape, who's going to be leading many of the technical issues. So yes, I think we can make a start. Everyone, first up, the background and the changes. And for these, we would like to invite Professor Mabizela to take us through them. Professor Mabizela, over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Nel. Good afternoon, colleagues. We all know that Rhodes University has two retirement schemes. The first one is the Rhodes University Pension Fund, which is a defined benefit scheme. And the other one is the Rhodes University Provident Fund, a defined contribution scheme. In 2018, actuarial analysis of the Rhodes University Pension Fund pointed to a significant risk that the fund placed on the university's balance sheet. Subsequent to that, an extensive exercise was undertaken whereby the trustees and the university reviewed the current benefit structure of the fund. Among other things, they considered the trends and developments in the retirement benefit industry and the move away from defined benefit to defined contribution arrangements. Secondly, the need for the consolidation of the staff retirement fund arrangement at Rhodes University. Third, the university's objectives to de-risk its balance sheet and at the same time support future financial sustainability of Rhodes University. So, after careful consideration, Council took a resolution that it was no longer practical to continue providing retirement benefits within the pension fund, other than those benefits, of course, that had already been accrued on the earlier. The Rhodes University Defined Benefit Pension Fund places an ever-increasing open-ended financial obligation on Rhodes University's resources. You might want to know if the university will continue to be a sponsor to cover the financial soundness risk for members who decide to remain in the pension fund. Look, our starting point in this regard is that trustees have the first obligation to look after the fund and to use all levers that are available to them to ensure that the fund remains viable and is able to meet the needs of those who opt to remain in it. Now, the university may not be able to underwrite possible future funding shortfalls, depending upon the prevailing financial context of the university at that given point in time. Now, the pension fund will have to operate on a self-sustaining or self-funding basis going forward. In this regard, the pension fund has established an expense reserve account to attend to these matters. In the event that the fund finds itself in a deficit in the future, the trustees will be required to exercise the options available to them in terms of the relevant legislation and the rules of the fund prior to making any approach to the university for any possible assistance. So what we are saying is it is really important for the trustees to look after the fund so that it is able to honor its obligations. But in the event that they have used all the available avenues to them, it is only then that the university will be able to hear them out. Thank you very much. I hope this clarifies the background to where we are and how we want to manage this very important transition. And retirees, because we value the contribution that you have made to our university. Thank you very much, Professor Nel.
Thank you very much, Professor Mabizela, for giving the opening presentation on the changes as they happen. Folks, you may well have some questions regarding Professor Mabizela's presentation. Please save them. There will be opportunity at the end of the session for you to raise them. We move on with the agenda, and next up is going to be a discussion on your options as a pensioner of the fund. And to take us through these, we'd now like to invite Mr. Derek Munton. Derek, over to you.
Thank you, Professor Nel, and thank you everyone for giving me the opportunity to present to you today. So let's take a look at what the options are available to the pensioners of the fund. Your options as a pension of the fund. With this change, the trustees are providing pensioners with an opportunity to voluntarily purchase their pension through another provider. You're only required to take any action should you wish to make use of this once-off option. If you wish to remain a pensioner of the Rhodes University Pension Fund with no change to your current pension, then you do not need to do anything. This option does not enable you to directly access your pension capital, as this is not allowed in terms of the Income Tax Act or the Pension Funds Act. We do, however, encourage pensioners, even though if you do decide to remain a pensioner of the fund and you simply don't complete an option form, we do encourage pensioners to actively do that, just so that the trustees can make sure that pensioners have in fact applied their minds as to the options available to them. But you'll firstly need to register your interest in taking up this option with the fund. Note that registering your interest is not binding and does not mean that you'll have to uplift your pension capital. Rather, it is a mechanism for the fund to identify who might be interested in this option and accordingly who the fund should engage with further. Again, we stress that you do not need to return this form if you do not want to take up this option. Having said that, the option is a once-off opportunity which the trustees may not, for various financial reasons, make available again. It is only once the fund has the information that we will engage with you as to the illustrative value of your pension capital. The fund is unfortunately not able to provide illustrative figures before then. The actuary has since completed his valuation as at 1 January 2022, and at the same time will be calculating the final upliftment values for pensioners. It's important that you also consult with an accredited financial planner so that they can guide you and present the various options available to you. Should you then decide to transfer your pension capital, the fund will need a completed application form from the insurer to whom you'll be transferring to. Where the pension fund administration payroll is currently paying your medical aid premiums, you'll need to make arrangements to now transfer any payments where this is applicable to your new provider. Should you decide to transfer your pension capital, the Financial Sector Conduct Authority must approve this transfer. The approval transaction is known as a Section 14 transfer, and it's quite a complex process requiring the completion of various documents by both the transferor fund and the transferee fund. The process can take some time before approval is obtained from the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. This could be anything from 6 to 9 months. During this period, your pension will continue to be paid by the Rhodes University Pension Fund. The capital value that is eventually transferred to your selected annuity will be adjusted with pension payments made between 1 July 2022 up until the Section 14 approval date, plus investment growth on the capital during this period. The trustees have ensured that various resources are made available to you in the form of accredited financial planners. They've all been briefed on the benefit structure of the fund and what is required in terms of this restructuring exercise. On the top left-hand side is Roy Morgan. Many of the pensioners and active members will be familiar with Roy. He's the dedicated principal financial planning consultant allocated to the Rhodes University retirement funds. Assisting Roy will be Buntu Bam, the next on Roy's right, then followed by Greg Bradfield, Don Ridden, Brent Kops is the bottom left, Alushka Anderson, all of whom are supported by the regional head of the division, Rob Rayner, who's in the bottom right-hand block. We'd like to encourage pensioners to access the official Rhodes University Pension Fund Restructuring information site. This site provides a wealth of information about the restructuring process, and this site can be accessed by logging into www.rupensionfund.co.za. All the seminars that have been held and webinars are recorded and are available on this website as well. Just to recap, on the 16th of February 2022, a retirement planning workshop was held where we looked at the range of annuity options available to pensioners considering to uplift out of the fund. For those of you who were unable to attend this seminar, a recording is available on the official website, which we alluded to in the previous slide. I'll now hand you back to our facilitator, Professor Nel. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek, for taking us through the various options and the to-do steps. Folks, we are making progress with our agenda. And next up, we have some frequently asked questions about the whole process. we do feel confident that many or all of these questions may well be on your mind too. To take us through these, I would now like to hand over to Professor Gavin Keaton. Over to you, Gavin.
Thanks very much, Hugo, and good afternoon, everyone. As Hugo said at the beginning of the webinar, there will be a chance to ask questions via the chat function at the end of the webinar, so please use that to ask additional questions. So the first frequently asked question is, has the Financial Sector Conduct Authority approved and registered the rule amendment to allow for the restructuring of the Rhodes University Pension Fund? And the answer to that is yes, the FSCA approved and registered the amendment on the 21st of November 2021. So what are the implications of these changes for active members and for pensioners? Starting with active members who are not on this call, but just to tell you what's happening with them. All active members will be required to join the Rhodes Provident Fund on 1st of April 2022. So all their future payments will be into the Provident Fund. And then active members have the choice of either leaving their actuarial reserve valued as at 1st of April 2022, they can leave that in the pension fund, or if they so choose, they can transfer that actuarial reserve into the Rhodes University Provident Fund. What about pensioners? Well, pensioners, in other words, people currently in receipt of a pension paid from the fund have a window period during which they may either decide to remain a member of the fund, so stay as you currently are, receive your current benefits, or pensioners may elect to purchase a pension from an insurer, an outside company. They can purchase that in their own names. And this window period is from 1st of April to the 30th of June 2022. As Derek have said, this is a once-off option, and you're only required to take any action if you want to take advantage of this once-off option. While we would prefer you to actually actively indicate your decision to stay or your decision to leave. If you decide to stay, there will be no change in your current pension, and you in fact do not really have to do anything. As Professor Mabazela said, the fund has created an expense reserve account, and this will meet the cost and expenses of the fund once the active members leave with effect from 1st of April 2022. So for those pensioners who choose to uplift their pension capital, when will the restructuring process be finalized? Well, again, just a couple of points on that. The final value that would be transferred for pensioners making this decision will be the 30th of June 2022. Now, that final value as of June 2022 could be slightly different than any previous quotations provided. And the reasons for this would be, firstly, that pension payments will have been made to the pensioner since the previous quotation. And secondly, that final value will take into account any changes in the pension fund valuation discount rate. And that could be impacted by changes in bond yields that have occurred since the previous quotation was provided. So, transfer out of the pension fund, as Derek said, this is known as a Section 14 transfer, and it's quite a complex process which can take some time before approval is obtained from the FSCA. This could be anything from 6 months to 9 months, or even in rare cases, 18 months. So if you do decide to uplift your pension capital and you're still waiting for your approval from the FSCA, who will pay your monthly pension, well, the answer is this will continue to be paid by the Rhodes University Pension Fund. And the pensioner choosing to uplift their capital, the capital value will be transferred out of the current fund investment portfolios and will be invested in a money market portfolio. So this will secure your capital value by protecting it against any market volatility associated with the pension fund's portfolio of market-linked assets, such as shares, equities. That capital value that is eventually transferred into the selected annuity the pensioner has chosen to buy in the market will be adjusted with pension payments made between 1st of July up until the Section 14 approval date, and also investment growth on the capital in the money market portfolio during that period. So back to you, Hugo.
Thank you, Gavin. Folks, that brings us to the end of the formal presentations. And just to summarize, from here forward, we would just like to give you a contact reference. Should you would like to get in touch, please call on 0860 talk 2AF or email us on consultwithalexanderforbes@aforbes.com. Yes, as I said, that brings us to the end of the formal presentations. And at this point, it's going to be over to you with your questions and or any comments that you may have on the basis of the presentation. We can also just point out that the recording of the webinar will be made available and will be accessible on the Rhodes University Pension Fund Restructuring information site afterwards. So for the remainder of the session, Gavin and myself will be facilitating the question and answer session. We will try to answer where we can, or alternatively redirect your questions to some of the other panel members. If time runs out, the question and answers will be made available on the Rhodes University Pension Fund Restructuring information site. As indicated, you are now most welcome to give your questions and comments via the chat box. Gavin and I will be available.
So there are no questions at the moment, but we will wait. Maybe people are typing.
Yes, nothing at the moment. Anything that may come up, anything that you would like to raise, please feel free. Just in terms of summary of what we did, it was quite important to start off with a presentation by Professor Mabizela on the background and what is actually happening regarding the funds. So we would like to make sure that all that information has been available to you. And then also just to point out the various ways through which information is shared and through which you can interact with the team. Also remember that it's quite possible for you to not raise a question here, but rather prefer to do a one-on-one consultation with the colleagues at Alexander Forbes. Of course, you are most welcome to do that, and we've had quite a few of those with members then understanding the process much better and being much more clear as to their own decision. We don't have any questions yet that I can see, Gavin.
Nope, there's nothing. So perhaps we just rely on people, if something occurs to you when you think about what you heard, then to use the website to send us the questions, or you can email directly to myself or to Hugo, and we'll get back to you.
Yes, agreed from my side. We still have no questions.
Okay, sorry, there's Hugo. There isn't a question now from PW. It says, will the quoted value from 1st July 2022 be guaranteed, or can it be reduced if the fund is not fully funded? I think the answer, well, let me just check with Derek. Perhaps you can help us with that.
Yeah, so the value definitely won't be reduced, and unless Putin does something drastically and the Earth moves out of its orbit. But the fund is in a sound financial position. It's 100% funded, and its solvency reserves have in fact improved. So there's no chance of the benefits reducing. So we can take it as the capital being guaranteed. Obviously, that capital where you do elect to uplift, the pensioner will be given the choice of moving that into a money market portfolio, so as to protect that capital between the effective date of transfer and the approval date by the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. Alternatively, pensioners will be able to also remain invested in the two market-linked portfolios, Fort and Investec, if they so wish. But the capital value, as I said, that is provided as a final transfer value will be guaranteed.
Thanks, Derek, from my side.
And then I see Richard has had difficulty accessing the recordings of previous sessions and asked if anyone else had issues. And Nikki from Alexander Forbes has given Richard the link. It's from the website. And so you should be able to access it on the website. If there's any more problems, please come back to us. PW asks, if I die after 1st of July 2022, will my quoted value be revised? Don't want to be facetious, but we will all die after 1st of July 2022. But I mean, you obviously mean during the period until the Section 14 transfer goes through. What is the answer to that, Derek? I'm afraid I don't know.
The capital value will be available to the beneficiaries of the pensioner in that period. So the full value is available. So this is where we're talking about a retiree who's elected to uplift, because that the underlying reserve value in effect vests in the retiree's name. And so that capital will then be payable to the retiree's beneficiary or to his estate.
Okay, I see Richard's still got problems with this website. Richard, we'll have to come back to you. So it says it can't find you on the in the directory. We will investigate this, and I promise we'll come back to you. Any other questions?
Let's see. Let's just have a look here.
Nothing more.
Okay, Hugo, I think perhaps we should call it a day then and say but this is not the end of the road. If people want to ask us questions, please either use you could the phone number that you've been given, the website, the email address you've been given, or I'm sure you know Hugo and my Rhodes email addresses, and you're welcome to send us emails direct. Back to you, Hugo.
Yes, thanks, Gavin. Also from my side, please feel free to send any further questions or comments through to us. Just to emphasize that this whole restructuring process has been going for quite a while, and it is happening at the moment. The process is organized extremely well, and you can go forward with confidence as to the options available to you. Maybe you did not ask a question today, but please feel free to make an appointment with a financial advisor, a private sector provider or company, just to look at various options as to whether you would want to consider staying in the Rhodes University Pension Fund or uplifting. They will be able to provide you with particular scenarios, and that may inform your decision as well. So from our side, yes, Gavin and colleagues who participated, we can say goodbye at this point. I see no further questions, but as indicated, you're most welcome to approach the team. That is probably it from our side. Team, are we all happy to say goodbye? Professor Mabizela has been with us, Gavin, Derek, myself. We'd just like to thank you all for signing up for the webinar, for taking part, and we do hope that through the presentations and the opportunity for questions, you do feel covered in terms of information. So from my side, I'm going to say goodbye, and I think if our panel can also just give a cheerio, then we go from there.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
bye.
you.